In this video I'm going to be showing you how to set up your plant and how to light it. The first stage really before you start the setup is to have some idea about how you want to portray the subject on paper. So you should have at this stage done some preliminary sketches and thumbnails and have a good idea of what the composition is going to be. The idea then is to recreate that composition in front of you in your line of vision so that you can work from it. So today I'm working with some white narcissus. I've actually using a black background to show up the subject because it's a white flower. It's quite difficult for you to see and to film on a video. So I've used this black background just for the purpose of demonstration. Unless of course you were painting the plant on a black background, which you could actually do with acrylic or gouache. So having had a look at the plant and decided that I want to have two stems of it, I need to think about what features I want to show and how I'm going to arrange it on the paper. I've decided on the two stems in a staggered position and how I'm going to fix them. To do this, I want to show off all the relevant parts from a botanical perspective. I want to show full flower, side views, rear views, buds, and I want to show the stem, this flattened stem, so I need to show it from that side and that side. It's also got a twist in it, which is quite nice, so I want to be showing some of that if possible as well. I usually work with a number of cuttings, and I look for ones that are typical or interesting. So this one I've selected because it's got a nice curve in it, and a smaller one, which is quite nice as well because it's got less flowers and you see the nice papery bits. I've rejected this one because it's got 4 flowers on it, which is an odd number showing at the moment. Which is an even number showing, and doesn't look so good. It's also quite straight and upright and not as interesting as the other ones. So how do I fix it in front of me? There's lots of ways of doing this, and you really need to work with each individual plant to get it to sit in a way that's naturalistic, but in the positions that you want it to be without forcing it into any awkward positions. I use foam board, which is what this is, and I score it down the back and fold it to make a kind of giant greetings card. This can be easily pinned into. I use a variety of materials to fix plants into position. As I say, it depends on the plant. Some flimsy kind of plants need to be hung. They might be downward facing plants with very fine stems, so I use florist wire for that, which I position around them, twist around, and then pin the wire into the board, and that can get them to hang in the position that's their natural growing habit. This one's got quite a sturdy stem, it's not so difficult, so I use these small pots of water to place the stem in and put pins through the stem and fix it into the foam board in the position that I want the plant to be. The good thing about pins is that they allow you to have the plant sitting away from the foam board behind. You see I've got quite a bit of space behind there, and that stops the flowers from being pressed against the surface at the back. And I can reposition this as I want, deciding on which parts I want to show. The second stem I've already cut shorter because, as I say, I want a staggered composition. And this one I've had the flat front facing side, and this one I want to show more of the side, the narrower edge. So again, push the pin through the stem and press it into the board. I can play around with this until I get it in the right position. It's best not to keep poking holes in the actual plant. Instead, make one pinhole and move it on the board, on the background. Put another one in there. You're going to have to play around with it to get the right position. Quite a bit of force. You see there, I can pull it away from the edge. So looking at something like that, I'd work with it quite a bit more than this, but that gives you an idea of how to fix it in position. And you want that in your line of vision, really. You want to have that to the side, to the left side of the drawing board. I have my materials on the right side of the drawing board, and this is for a right-handed setup, which I'm showing you today, which is the most common one. Reposition slightly so you can see everything. Now the next point that we come to is the lighting. Now one of the things that I've noticed with lighting, particularly with white flowers, which are more difficult, you're very heavily dependent on good light with a white flower, otherwise there's not an awful lot going on. You need to take into consideration the tonal value difference between the stem here, which is very much darker than the tonal values in the flowers. Something that I've noticed is sometimes neglected, and there's too much similarity in the tonal value. Now a lot of this is to do with your lighting as well. Now the tradition is to light from the upper front left, and you can use a variety of different types of angle poise lamps for this. You could elevate them if necessary onto a box if you want them higher. I got one of these kind of twisty, seen back days, daylight bulb lamps. Not the easiest to see on a video, unfortunately. And I position that at the upper left. You need to play about with the distance here, because the distance will give you quite a big variation in lighting. So for example, if you move the light too close to the plant, you're going to get a very bleached out white part here. It's not going to be the most interesting of lightings on your plant. Similarly, if the light is too, I know you can't see the light where I'm moving it to, but if it's too far away, you start to lose the highlights and shade, and it becomes all mid-tone based, and you don't want that either. You want a combination of good highlights, mid-tone and shade from left to right. That doesn't mean you don't get highlights here, because basically when the light falls onto a subject from the upper left like this, anything that bends in the way of the light and catches the light is lit, and you can see on the inside of the trumpet of the flower there maybe, and on the edges here it's actually light, and that's because these petals are bending forward and catching the light. So anything obstructing the light is going to cast shadow, and anything in the light is going to be highlighted. So you really need to play around with the distance, and as I say, it depends on the plant. Every plant is different structurally, and you can't, there's no one setup that's going to fit all, unfortunately. You're going to have to play around with it to get the best light and shade possible. The best advice I can give on it is to take lots of photographs, because that can help you to see what your best lighting option is. Particularly with graphite, you can turn that photograph on your computer screen to black and white as well, and that'll help you to see the most interesting light composition. You can see here now with the light on it, hopefully the sort of curve in this stem, which is quite nice, and it's flattened on the front there. And this one, we've got the side view where we've got this flattened edge, and it's shaded on the right side of that. So everything on the right side is in shade, and everything on the left side is in the highlight, is in the light. So as I say, play around with your light, try and get it right. Lots of photographs, try them in black and white, and take it from there. The other type of light that we're looking at as well is what's called reflected light, and that you'll see here a little bit on this stem, And what that is again where the light falls on things and passes and it hits a white surface. Now that could be, or a light surface, that could be the surface of a leaf or a flower on a plant that light's reflecting back to, and it reflects back onto the subject and you get a highlight which is never as bright as an actual highlight in the light source on the left hand side. So reflected light is lighter but never as light as a highlight. And that bounces back also on the buds here and on the stem. And that makes for a more interesting composition too. You can actually use foil or shiny surfaces to enhance that reflected light as well. So that's basically how you would set up your subject. So first off, just recapping, observe the plant, look at the features you want to demonstrate. Look at, you want to show maybe your buds, these lovely papery bits. Flowers in full view, flowers in profile, flowers from the rear side. You want to show the different aspects of the stem. There's no leaves involved in this particular composition, but I probably would add leaves to it. And you want to make your lighting consistent. I work with a lamp on this because a lamp gives you consistent light. Daylight won't give you consistent light, and for a beginner or anybody really, you're going to get more working hours using a lamp than you are from working with daylight, which is very variable. Consider your materials. Are they appropriate when you're setting up your subject? What materials are best for that subject? If it's a delicate one, you can't go poking great big pins through the stems. Limit the amount of pins you put through it and just secure what you need, and use materials creatively. There's also things like Minifix, which is an Oasis product, and that's a kind of sticky substance that you can use to secure parts of a plant. Pins, wire, whatever you need, use whatever works. And finally, the lighting. Consider the lighting. Make sure you're comfortable, make sure it's in your line of view, make sure you've got that variation in tone from light to shade, and you can't really go wrong with it at that. That's about it.